So this is about a new policy or a plan or devised by Ministry of Tribal Affairs for the relocation of the forest tribes. It has been uh, released in the context of serious concerns about the non-implementation of the Forest Right Act in the areas declared as tiger reserves and other protected areas. Before this, the relocation was guided by the governing uh, guidelines by the NTCA, which comes under the operation of Union Ministry of Forest and for Environment, Forest and Climate Change. So, but this was overly inclined towards relocation about the communities for the conservation over the welfare of the tribal communities which were living. So, what are the policies? The policies named Reconciling Conservation and Community Rights, a policy framework for relocation and coexistence in India's tiger reserves. So, it tries to maintain a balance between conservation and community rights. Uh, First provision is formation of a national framework for community-centered conservation and relocation. Basically, a framework for relocation conservation, through which Environment Ministry and Tribal Affairs Ministry can jointly set procedural standards, timelines, and accountability. Second, it suggests a national database on conservation community interface to record and track relocations, compensation, and status post relocation. Third, it recommends the annual independent audits of relocation projects by impaneled agencies that assess compliance with the FRA, the Wildlife Protection Act, and human rights standards. Fourth, the document also spells out consent procedures, specifying that consent for relocation must be obtained before any administrative notification declares an area as a part of tiger reserve. So, before any administrative notification, the consent procedure should be followed. Fifth, it adds that the consent must be verifiable not just at Gram Sabha level but also at the level of each household. Sixth, it also stresses that the forest dwelling communities residing within tiger reserves must have the option to exercise their rights under FRA to continue living in the traditional forest habitats. Uh, because it is an state's duty to safeguard these rights and not curtail them except under the demonstrable ecological necessity. So, what was the need of this policy? Because of the serious concerns over the non-implementation of the FRA in the areas. Uh, the June 2024 directive by NTCA calls for state to prioritize relocation from tiger reserves over the community rights, which has led to widespread protest from the Gram Sabhas and representations to NCST. The whole village relocation is guided by two acts. First, WPA, that is Wildlife Protection Act under the Ministry of Environment and Forest Climate Change, and the FRA, Forest Rights Act under the Ministry of Tribal Affairs. While the WPA empowered forest departments to create the spaces required to sustain tiger population, FRA mandated them to settle forest dwellers' right to land, right to forest produce, and other forest activities, allowing them to either continue living in their habitats or relocate them with a monetary package. In case the villagers choose to stay, the administration is mandated to provide them basic services and infrastructure. And for the relocation, every family is to be given rupees 15 lakh as per the current standards. But it has been seen that there have been forced relocation, and also if the Gram Sabha does not relocate even after the force, these they are not provided the basic mandated basic services and infrastructure. Such incident has been in the news in the Nagaru National Park and is under the State High Court sub judice. It must be understood that as per the existing laws, the village relocation should be voluntary and not and only carried out once it has been scientifically determined that no form of cohabitation with human settlement is possible. But the gaps in these ways in the way these rules are implemented has necessitated for such new policy from the Tribal Affairs Ministry.